Appreciate you coming into the weight room. It's good to get you on the podcast finally and just kind of talk about you and your experiences in the world of fitness, bodybuilding, and all that kind of cool stuff. So
yeah,
just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, man. So name's Austin Brown. Where we got the camera here? Is this?
These three. So
okay, we're all over. All right. Yeah. No. So Austin Brown. I'm actually from Indiana. So I'm across the pond here from Louisville, and full-time fitness coach. I do, I work with bodybuilders, but also lifestyle clients a lot as well. Bodybuilder myself. So currently, I'm an amateur bodybuilder, tackling the national circuit, going for the pro card, but that's, that's pretty much my life in a nutshell. Outside of that, between being an entrepreneur now and full-time coach, it takes a lot of my focus. So that's pretty much it. I'm married. You've had my wife, Melanie, on the podcast. So, we spend a lot of time, doing fitness things, and that's pretty much our life. So that's it in a nutshell, outside of that, I'm not, that sounds very one dimensional, but when you're a bodybuilder, that's kind of how it has to be,
Yeah. I mean, I can't imagine actually being a bodybuilder. I'm just into like the lifestyle of it. I've never competed. I don't really think I will compete, but
sure.
Even as much as that goes, like I love like training and eating properly and meal prep and like all that kind of stuff. And I'm really like, okay, I want to be in bed by 9 o'clock or whatever. So it's like, I'm really focused kind of on like the, just the healthy side of it. And I can already tell where that's like a little bit of a commitment, a little bit of like a time thing.
Sure.
So like just adding more layers onto that where you're being more, more optimal and more serious about it.
Yeah. Yeah. And, no, you nailed it on the head, and it's all the time you're kind of, you're re-evaluating that. And am I being, as optimal as possible? And then what can I make better? And then it's, it's all the time you're making this piece a little better than, all the time. So, and then eventually you're just, it's every piece of your life, when you're a bodybuilder. So, that can carry its own stressors and things that way. And, a lot of bodybuilders go through that, and they have that moment where they're like, they're so, underwater with it all that they're, it gets them stressed out. And then you see some people just, either fly completely off the handle, or some, do it appropriately and take structured time off and things that way. Or, then you'll have the people that, completely demonize the lifestyle after they've gotten so involved in it for so long. So it's easy to get extremely wrapped up in it.
Yeah. And it's kind of sad because like, I feel like people who do demonize it in anything, like whether it's like, oh, the life of a business person, it's too much stress, it's too much time away from family, or the life of a bodybuilder, or the life of a student, like people who kind of have been through that a little bit and then demonize it, kind of like you're saying, they don't go through it the proper way, or I don't want to say the balanced way, but they don't go through it kind of the way that can lead to that success in that field, whatever that is.
Yeah, no doubt. I don't know. It's balance is, it's one thing. And there was a phase there where people really preached it heavily. And at the end of the day, if you want to be really, really good at something, it's like, how balanced can you be? You know what I mean? But you have to do a good job of evaluating, where you're at with, what phase you're in and where you are towards your goals, and put in those times that are, certain type of a break.
Yeah. So what were you like in high school or whatever? Did you play sports? Were you into lifting then? What got you into kind of that world?
Yeah, no, I was a 3-sport athlete in high school, just sports year round, football, basketball, baseball, extremely competitive, from, since I was a kid. And then actually went to college to play football at a small school, and got injured. Actually broke my wrist, just kind of a small injury, but we had a weight room there, and certain practices if you were injured, you were able to just work out instead. And I got really into training, switching from training. So I had a cast on my arm, and I went from training, very sports specific stuff where you're you're strictly worried about being as strong as possible and performing, how much can you lift and how explosive can you be, to, okay, now I got this cast on my arm. I'm going to have to use these machines over here that I've never used, and really learn how to isolate a muscle, and training, for hypertrophy more so than just strictly sports performance. And I kind of got obsessed with it then. And I was like, this is really cool. And I was a 240-pound linebacker, kind of fat, just ate all day, just seafood, eat it. Like that was and then I got into the diet side of things. I was like, well, I'm injured, I'm going to trim some of this unnecessary weight off. I don't really need it. And I got really obsessed with learning how to do that. And that was my freshman year of college. And I actually dieted down from like 240 to like 175. And from then it was just, the fire was lit. And it was like, okay, this is all really cool. Like learning how to manipulate what's going in your body and seeing the results from that. And then, manipulating, okay, this training style versus this training style. And then it all came from there. So that's pretty much how it all started. And, bodybuilding.com was a big thing back then. They, free programs and stuff, did a lot of that type of thing, got really into it. Had some people I kind of looked up to in that regard, and it just kind of snowballed from there. Yeah. So here we are, 10 years later, and it's, where it's at.
Yeah. Bodybuilding.com, I remember back when I was in college, just starting out, that was kind of my entrance to really like truly going to the gym and lifting weights and that kind of thing. I was kind of always into like body weight stuff because I didn't have access really to a gym. And then I was always interested in diet. I was actually going to try to go to college for like nutrition and stuff like that. Yeah. But I ended up doing exercise science, which is still a good path to go for me.
Definitely.
But yeah, bodybuilding.com, like,
what a cool thing, right? Like, right. I think so many people our age, like that was really how they got into, lifting weights and things. They had all the free programs, which I think now, I haven't been on there in years, but I think now they have those still. They just charge a little bit for them and stuff, which is still great. But, what a cool resource back then. And there was specifically one, Chris Gethin. He had like a 12-week trainer, and he literally had a video for every day for like 3 months of, him eating, how he trained, a workout plan that accompanied that. It taught you how to be a bodybuilder to a degree.
Right.
It was super cool. So yeah, what a cool resource.
Yeah. And when I remember when I really started, I didn't know, like, I feel like bodybuilding kind of introduced me into the world of fitness through Arnold, just being super inspired by him.
Sure.
But I never really consider like, hey, I'm training, even though like, hey, bodybuilding.com, I never like thought, oh, I'm training like a bodybuilder. I'm training like if I switched up, or I'm training like more, like power or strength. I never thought about that when I was training. It was more like, hey, I want to go to the gym because I enjoy it. Mm-hmm. And I always found myself kind of drifting a little bit, not being able to stick to a certain plan. That's always been kind of my problem is I will like, I just loved creating, especially when I did get more into the educational side of it. Mm-hmm. I learned how to like create programs, and I learned like these things work for this. And, I was so interested in it, but I couldn't stick to it. I was like, okay, 4 weeks on this, 8 weeks on this, 6 weeks on that. And then I'd be like, oh, I want to try this new thing now.
No, I get that totally. And I'm a lot of the same way actually. And kind of now I'm, during my process, I've been the same way. You learn something new, and you want to apply it, right?
Right.
So it's easy to be like, well, I'm going to switch, jump around from one thing to another. So I get it. So then you take all those, all that knowledge and things you've learned and kind of come up with, well, I like this approach probably the best. And then eventually after years of doing all those various, variable approaches, you come up with something you can kind of stick to for a long time. Yeah.
And I remember, I was making actually some pretty good progress over, I think, my junior year. And then I was like, I just learned something new. So I was like, let me just see what happens with this. Right. And I tried it, and it was like an increase in reps, a decrease in rest. So, just more
metabolic.
Yeah.
Just burn some calories.
It hit me. It hit me hard because at the time I knew it, but I didn't put two and two together. Like, hey, I'm a hard gainer. If I do this, it's going to make it even harder. And then like I just saw all of my previous work just kind of, it was kind of tough. And
well, lesson learned though.
Yeah. It's true though. Lesson learned, and you learn from it, and you know what works for you.
That's right. Yeah. No, it's the best way to learn is to, kind of goof something up. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
So what led you actually, you're talking about kind of becoming more interested in the hypertrophy side of things. Yeah. What introduced you? What opened your door, opened the door for you to bodybuilding?
So dieted down, like I said, lost all that weight. I was looking pretty good. Kind of like just, skinny kid with abs, but I was like 175 pounds, well, 175, 180, probably like, I don't know, 7-8% body fat. I was looking pretty good. I actually had a buddy of mine at a gym back home, and he's like, you ever thought about doing a bodybuilding contest? And I'm like, no, not at all. And he's like, well, there's one in, it was maybe 2 months away or something. And he's like, do it with me. I was like, sure, let's do it. So, did a men's physique contest in 2014. And then from there, it was like, I was obsessed, I was like, I got bit by the bug for sure. And, the whole process, going through it, and just that was the Kentucky Open, and back when they had it in Frankfurt, but in 2014, and that was my first contest, and just been competing ever since then. So that's really what got me into it, and really had at that point didn't really have any idea what I was doing, but coach myself, and so cool experience. But that's kind of what opened the door to it all. And
coaching yourself, having a little bit of experience, just kind of tinkering with your diet, nutrition. But how did that affect, how was your first prep with that knowledge? Like, what do you feel like if you had to grade yourself? Yeah, no, I mean, pretty good, really. I didn't have any expectations going into the show. I was like, I just want to do it and just see what it's about, see if it's fun, if I enjoy it. I got third place in like my open class. I looked pretty good. Honestly, like, obviously you can always be better. I was small. I came in really conditioned though. I learned how to diet down hard and suffer for a contest. And I don't know if a lot of people for their first show actually get to that point where they're, in that suffer zone where there's some, at a certain point you can do all you can to mitigate that during a contest prep, and you kind of want to avoid it as long as possible, as long as progress is being made. But at some point you're going to, kind of have to suffer and just get through that. And that happened for me, my first contest. And, I think I competed around like, I don't know, 172 or something pounds. And then, I was like, well, I got third place. Like, let's see if I can do better. And that was in August. And October I did a show. I was like, well, I'll do better for that one. I got down to like 165 pounds. I really learned how to like strip the body fat off. So I came into that one super lean, won the show. So it's like, cool. I was the smallest guy in the show, won it because I was super lean, super shredded. So I learned how to, go through that. And I actually coached myself up until 2019. And then at that point, so that was all through college. And then, at that point I was like, yeah, I got a career. I got a lot of other things to think about. And then at that point I was like, let me give up that stress of, taking over my own stuff, and then also learn from someone else. So that's when I got on with my current coach. And what was it for you was it just the experience, each time learning, or did you go through and do certifications or learn through other, books or whatever to continue to get better yourself? Yeah, it's hard to like pinpoint any specific resources necessarily, but just constantly, being in totally indulged in the world of bodybuilding and picking up small things here and there. And like we talked about, just trying those different things and making my own manipulations and things that way. But, like originally I started out really big on just like, macro-based dieting and was really infatuated with that. I thought it was really cool. And I've learned, over the years that can be great, but within certain applications. So, my approach has changed a lot just over those years, and I would have to really just say it's mostly due to my own experimenting with myself. Yeah. Versus now I've learned a lot from other people, obviously, but it's hard to pinpoint exactly like this one program, or I've not done any like specific, I was like ISSA certified personal trainer and went through their nutrition course, which it's quality, it's good. But I can't say that I learned a ton of what I use for my own bodybuilding from that or my coaching. But really, so yeah, mostly just little bits here and there, throughout the journey. Yeah. Did you ever try anything out that didn't turn out to be super great? You know, maybe like a leap of faith kind of thing, maybe a trend or something like that.
I'm trying to think. I'm pretty good at avoiding like things like that. I feel like I'm big on research. I like things that are scientifically proven that I can back up to some degree. I like, things that have hold some weight one way or another versus there's something to be said for anecdotal, certain things that are anecdotal, but I like to see things that are pretty concrete and proven, but I can't really think of anything that's been a disaster that I've tried necessarily.
I was just chilling today before this. I was like looking on Instagram,
Sure.
just scrolling, and I came across a few different things. One had to do with fitness, one had to do with like marketing, and it's just crazy, like all of the secrets out there. All of the if you get this, then you'll have these results out there.
Sure. No, it's it's a good point. You got to be careful, right? Because especially as someone new to I get clients all the time. They'll send me an article or a post by someone, and they're like, "Well, what about this?" I'm like, let's just calm down. It's like, let's talk about this. So because there's so much out there, right? Especially now with the advent of social media. Right?
Yeah.
It's like you can be just from an hour of scrolling, you'll see 10 ideas on the same subject.
Right.
It's like, wow, what do I do to what approach do I take? So that's where having someone with that experience and that can guide you is really helpful and beneficial. But yeah, it's crazy how much is out there today, and most of it's people want to make money, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's super hard too in fitness and health because people, they either want a shortcut or they just finally want to do something that works. It's like, how many things has someone tried that is like that is the quote unquote secret that doesn't pan out? And then, maybe I'll go to this person and get some help. And then that person may not know, kind of like, really, they just kind of took basic knowledge that they know, and it's not perfect for like individualizing things. And, people, I feel like they just really want to get there. And there's just so much stuff out there. But when it comes to like after your first show, did you feel like that you were in it to stay? And did you feel like that you said you had that bug, but was it more of the bug of like, I want to keep doing this, or was it the bug of, I want to keep doing this to win and see how far I can get?
I think a little bit of both. I was obsessed with the lifestyle like before I even thought about competing. And I think that's a major issue with a lot of people these days. They see they're inspired by someone who was on stage, and they're like, I'm going to start working out to get on stage. It's like, no, let's fall in love with the process of training and dieting. Let's think about the stage later on.
Right.
So I was obsessed with that lifestyle first, but then the competitive side of me was, how far can I take this from a competitive standpoint? And if you told me in 2014 when I did that show that I was going to, come close to getting a pro card in the classic physique class, was wasn't even around then. And in 2021, I would have laughed and been like, no way. Right. So, that just shows the progression of like climbing that ladder. You reach this, and then you think, you're constantly, once you hit this mini goal, then it escalates up the ladder. And if you're truly into fitness as a lifestyle, you're never happy. It's like, say, when I get that pro card or whatever it may be, I'll be proud of it, but I'm not going to be done. I don't think I'm ever going to be like, it's going to be interesting when that time comes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think a little bit of both. I love the lifestyle and would do it anyway. But then the competitive side of me was like, how far can we go with this thing?
Yeah. And I've actually, heard several people kind of make the comparison between like an addiction. It's like you get that first show, it's that first hit, and then you keep chasing it.
Yeah.
And at least every time you're successful, you kind of move up a little bit, and that reward, that win is that higher dose, and
Sure.
that feels good. And then you chase that next one, and if you aren't successful, then it's the same thing. It's like, I want that again. I want that feeling again. Yeah. Would you say that's kind of something you can relate to?
Yeah, no, absolutely. you know, I think you should be the whole you versus you thing. You hear that. So like, obviously you should compete to do well in a contest. You shouldn't, but at the end of the day, you should, what should matter is, did I get better? You know, whether your placing might not always reflect that. Cause you know what, you might do a contest with 10 guys in your class that nobody really looked that great and you'll win.
Right.
And then the next show, you'll do a show with 6 guys in your class, but they're all really good and you'll get third. So did my placing reflect like my efforts and, you know, is that a success or a success or a failure? It's not necessarily, did I get better as a bodybuilder? Yeah. So you should be, you know, you gotta be able to look at that and, you know, evaluate that and be happy about it. But, you know, when you get knocked down, I can totally resonate with that. Like, I had a bad season this year. And I kind of, it's been a reborn motivation. Absolutely. So yeah, I think it is an addiction to a degree. Absolutely.
And,
for sure.
You know, moving from football to bodybuilding,
yeah.
Obviously football is known for being physical, dangerous, somewhat dangerous. You know, there's that chance for injury. And did you have any people in your life saying, you know, that we're used to that risk of football, that we're used to, you know, could get hurt or whatever down the line? And then moving to bodybuilding, did you have anybody thinking about around you, like the potential dangers or what they could see as the negatives of bodybuilding in your kind of in your circle?
Yeah, I mean, family wise, a little bit to a degree. Friends, not so much. It's interesting now that I'm about a decade into this whole bodybuilding thing is, you know, you start and you have this circle. I'll get to the dangers piece in a second, but from a friend standpoint, you kind of have this circle, and then like inevitably, depending on how deep you are into the bodybuilding scene, that circle's going to change because those people are doing X, Y, and Z. And unfortunately, X, Y, and Z doesn't fit in the lifestyle of a bodybuilder. So, you know, now all of my friends mostly are bodybuilders. So that circle changes and those people get it. So, you know, those concerns are also their concerns, you know, fit personally. So, you know, that I never had anyone like in the old circle really voice that to me necessarily. But inevitably those people kind of phase out of your life. You know, it's not that anything happened. It's just, you know, that's how it is when you're a serious bodybuilder. But my, you know, family, specifically my mom, like, you know, first show, I'm getting down to like 165 pounds from 240, right? She thinks I'm starving, but, you know, she thinks I'm going to die because I'm so lean and, you know, your hands look like skeletons and things like that. So she obviously thought that was unhealthy. But then eventually I got to the competitive standpoint to where I looked all right when I was in show shape. You know, I'm 200 pounds shredded. So, okay. She's like, okay, you don't look emaciated anymore. This is okay. So that kind of, you know, and she like more understands it now versus, you know, back then she just didn't really get it. And that comes along with time too. Yeah. All right. Now there's another side of bodybuilding, right, that we know is unhealthy, you know, drugs, etc. Most people aren't going to really voice their concerns, you know, with that to you, right? It's kind of an unspoken thing. Anything you do to an extreme level is going to carry some risk, right? So it's up to you and who you choose to you know, hear guidance from and have guide you that, you know, you need to trust someone that's going to take care of your health. And if you're doing it on your own, you need to be responsible about it and, you know, take the right precautions. So,
and, you know, talking to people from like the real bodybuilding world, you know, have been in it for 10 plus years, and then talking to people who are more influencers and they kind of do a bodybuilding show, but it's more kind of about the social media aspect. What does my physique look like? You know, I hear a lot of people from the bodybuilding world kind of voice their concern for the amount of like, the drug use that isn't done smartly. It's not done with anything. It's just here's what you can get. You need to get to this physique to get you more likes on Instagram. Push it.
Yeah.
I mean, what does that do to bodybuilding? Really, do you think?
I guess I'm trying to understand your question fully, but at the end of the day, I just don't think people understand how serious it is. You're not buying, it's not creatine, it's like you're altering your endocrine system.
Right.
You're putting something in your body that, will have an effect on you for the rest of your life, and people I don't think they sit down and really, they see this far, in front of their face. It's like, guys, let's take you're going to have a life that's long, hopefully. Yeah. So let's not worry about how many followers you have by the end of next year. Mm-hmm. Let's take a long-term thought process to this whole thing. And that's where, to be a good bodybuilder is you have to do this for a long time.
Yeah.
If you take a reckless approach from the word go, guess what? You're not going to be able to do this for a very long time.
Yeah.
So you better do your research, or you better hire someone who knows what they're doing to help you be able to do this for a sustainable amount of time, so you can actually get to the level you want to be at.
Right. But and so with that said, though, do you think that the people who are in that bigger spotlight, the 1 million followers, 500,000 follower people who are doing those things, pushing the limits or pushing the bounds, does that look like to the person who's not super into bodybuilding but follow those people, and then maybe something happens to that influencer?
Sure.
Oh, but bodybuilding's terrible for you. It's going to kill you if you do it. Does that play do you see that affecting bodybuilding in the next 5-10 years just because they have the most followers?
So I think a mistake a lot of people make is thinking that fitness and bodybuilding are the same thing. This big, large group. Now you see some crossover and carry over between the two, but this really big group of folks that are influencers and fitness folks that are, doing these, they might be taking these reckless approaches and things. Those aren't the same people that are this serious bodybuilding subculture. Like, those are two very different things. Now, there's bodybuilders with great influence and a large amount of following, but those are just two vastly different things, but people easily get them confused.
Right.
So do I see it affecting bodybuilding as a whole? No, because I think the people that are real bodybuilders are they're being influenced by this group over here, and not this large, fitness land of, the YouTube, the influencers and things. And I have total admiration for that group of people too. Like, that's great. And plenty of them are extremely successful, but what to note here is that it's very different than the bodybuilding subculture.
Yeah.
And you've seen some of these people, develop great physiques and turn professional in bodybuilding, but it's more so, like you said, a marketing ploy versus the passion.
Right.
Right. Yeah. So it's just important to know that those are very separate things.
Yeah. This episode is sponsored by Fountain TRT. Fountain wants to help you with your potential low T. Why do I say potential low T? Because a large percentage of men don't even know they're suffering from low T. They simply live with the symptoms that include weight gain, sluggishness, and erectile dysfunction, and have no idea of the cause. Fountain wants to help you figure out if low T is your issue and help you get your levels back to a healthy range with a topical cream. The Fountain team are medical professionals who have years of experience in the industry and expertise in TRT. These labs are often covered by insurance, and you may not have to pay anything out of pocket. The topical treatment is easy to use. Just apply it once daily to your shoulder area. Most men start seeing results immediately. So if you're ready to gain back your energy, drive, and mental clarity, lose that stubborn weight, and just generally feel happier, check out Fountain TRT and use the link below to support the weight room and claim your $1 evaluation. This episode is brought to you by Move Your Body Apparel, a Lexington-based, community-ran premium activewear brand that promotes the importance of daily movement. For the rest of the year, MYB is donating a percentage of every order to the Special Olympics of Kentucky. Save 20% off your first order with the link below or use code TWR20 online at mybapparel.com. In bodybuilding, it just from what I've seen, talking to so many different people in the sport, whatever their kind of goals are, is that the cool thing is that there are so many possible doors that can be opened, that can be, ventured through. Yeah. If you're doing it, like I said, regardless of kind of your motivation, whether you win the Olympia or whether you just want to, get more clients or get more followers and get sponsors, whatever it is. But the opportunity I feel like bodybuilding has right now to, because what bodybuilding kind of has done is it becomes popular, kind of goes back underground, becomes popular.
Sure.
I feel like right now it has that opportunity to become popular and then figure out what it can do to stay there. Utilize this opportunity now of we have all this traction, we have all these people online.
Yeah.
What can we do to actually stay here and then grow from there instead of going through the ebbs and flows?
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And at the end of the day, a lot of the taboo associated with the sport causes it to, like you said, kind of go back underground, right? So I think it's important, with social media and things that the correct figures are speaking up about the subjects that aren't so often talked about, and talking about going about them the proper way and things that way versus, I don't know. It's tricky.
Right.
It's tricky. So, I think it's up to those people with those followers that, to do the right things, so, I don't know. We'll see. There's a lot of things that need to change that way.
Yeah. There's so many moving parts, so many things to consider. Bodybuilding is a sport that I feel like what they do to attract business is far different than any other sport. Sure. The NFL doesn't want everybody out there to join the NFL. They want fans. They want people to cheer on. Whereas bodybuilding, it's like, hey, let's get people on stage.
Yeah.
So it's such a different approach. Yeah. It's so hard to kind of monetize that and grow.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Most bodybuilding fans are bodybuilders, right? Because like you said, they're in it. They appreciate it and they see someone at that level and they're like, oh man, that's where I'm trying to get. So no, it's tricky. The money comes from how many bodies are on the stage, right? And that's why we see there's 98 divisions now. And there's, it's like, everybody in there, and there's, you see a show and it's got true novice, collegiate, military. It's 98 classes, it's like, that's where the money comes from. Right. So, right. But yeah, no, you're right. It's hard unless you're a family member, you're not. Now there's the exceptions, but for the most part, bodybuilding fans are bodybuilders or a close family member of a bodybuilder. So no, you're right. It's a little tricky to monetize that and make it a thing. But at the end of the day, social media and stuff now, there's a lot of bodybuilders, it's growing. It's growing like crazy, man. It's big time. So, it's popular, and that group over here, the fitness group, that they're attributing to that as well, because you see a lot of those guys dipping their feet into the competitive world. Yeah. So people have those aspirations. Yeah. And then too, I heard a statistic. I hope I'm getting this right. It was from somebody on the podcast, but it was like 7 out of 10 people at a bodybuilding show are going to be new competitors. And so people are getting interested. But what that also says is there's not as many people returning. So I think making sure it's something that you do right the first time. You find a coach that's really good, that can help you through that process the first time. So it is something that you want to come back to. Yeah, because you can take two folks and their prep experience can be drastically different, basically of who they chose to listen to and what, because there's a lot of ways to get to that end product. But there's a way to optimize that. Right. You can go about it a very incorrect way and get there and do well. But, did you take care of like this, how are you doing up there? Because at the end of the day, if we're not okay in the mind, nothing else is going to really do much. Right.
Yeah.
If that ain't where it needs to be, I don't care. Nothing else is going to do very good. I don't care how motivated you think you are. If you had a bad experience or your mindset's not where it needs to be, you're not going to perform the way you need to perform, in the gym or during a contest prep or anything. So, it's our job as coaches to care and protect, the people that we're guiding and do it the right way and make sure that experience is good for them and that they want to come back and that their concerns are addressed properly and not, it's not brushed off as it's contest prep. Get over it. Right. Now, you can't coddle people, and there's parts that are going to be hard, but you gotta care and you gotta go about it the right way. Yeah, because a lot of people do get scared off. Yeah. You see it all the time. You see it all over social media. People have a bad experience, and they talk bad about bodybuilding and things, and that's fine. If you want to do that, it's fine. But at the end of the day, you just chose to listen to the wrong people, and you went about it the wrong way.
Yeah. So whenever you were first kind of getting into bodybuilding and doing those first shows during those first few years, what do you feel like how did you feel the transition? You're working out in the gym, did you feel like people maybe looked at you differently at the beginning versus, now that it has become more popular, not necessarily like looking at today, but over those first few years, did you kind of feel a shift in the culture while you were kind of first getting into it, to where it was like first people looked at you kind of weird, then it was more acceptable?
It's hard to say. It's funny because right when I got into bodybuilding is when social media, it was like the same exact time. I got into bodybuilding in 2012. That's literally when Instagram was made. That's when it really took off. So it's literally as I started is when it all kind of went that direction. And it's hard to say because at the end of the day, I was a 175-pound bodybuilder. I didn't really look like a bodybuilder. I look like a fit kid in the gym trying to work out or whatever. So I don't know. You see more of it now in the gym, more serious competitor. I won't even say competitors. I'll say people that have high fitness goals and the tripods. They see that a lot, right? And I'm all for it. I think it's great. But my concern is, what are people's motives, and are they falling in love with the right things? What's their why? Is there, and if your why is to have a large social media following, and that's all, those things, that's great. But if you're mixing that with bodybuilding, be careful, because your why really needs to be, I love to train and I love to diet and I love the day in and the day out. So if you don't truly love those things, you're not going to go very far, because this stuff's hard. It's boring. So you got to fall in love with the hard, boring stuff. Yeah. And really know that those actions are taking you one step closer to where you want to go.
Yeah. It's true. Several people have said it's like the flashiness of the day, the competition. It's overwhelming on social media. And then the underwhelming side of the social media is here's what I'm eating for breakfast for the, 58th day in a row.
That's
and,
right.
That's right. It's just you were doing that same exercise 4 months ago. Well, is that fun to see on social media, or is it just what you got to do? So
that's right. And as, content creators, that stuff doesn't get views.
Right.
As a bodybuilding coach who's, social media is important for my job and things, but what's important is how long can you be bored? Are you good at being bored? 'Cause that's really important. Yeah. I want every single one of your days to look the exact same, ideally, as a client. Yeah. If you have bodybuilding aspirations. So how long can you do that for me?
Yeah.
Now we can break up the monotony here and there with certain approaches, but really it is an extremely boring approach, and that's what gets results.
Yeah. As a coach though, if somebody comes saying hey, I want to do this, I want to test the waters of bodybuilding. I think I enjoy it. I think I will enjoy it. I enjoy this aspect of it. But let's be, this is just them talking, but let's be realistic. I'm probably going to stick to it maybe 90%, 85%. Sure. What do you think, that person being honest with you, what does that tell you? And what does that tell you about maybe their success or their failure in the sport?
I actually get similar conversations semi-often. The piece about, I'll be honest with you, I might not stick to it. That happens too. My answer to something like that would be, okay, great. Let's do it. The stage isn't going to be a conversation for a little while. Let's just get in the nuts and the bolts and give this thing a try. And then, it's evaluating those deviations on a weekly basis and talking through that person, which these are the facts is that's fine to do that. But just if you're going to take that approach of 80%, 90%, be okay with your goal being further away than you want it to be. Okay. It's like, I can get you here in, 2 years, but if you're going to be 80%, okay, maybe 3 years, 3.5 years. And are you okay with that? And whenever you decide you're not okay with that, just let me know and we'll get more serious. I don't mind people having some balance, because like I said, at the end of the day, we're trying to take care of your mindset the most. So if you're the person who needs that, and that's what's going to keep you, overall, I'd rather have you do that for 3 years straight than to give me 100% for 8 months and then fall the hell off for not hear from you for 3. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'd
rather you give me that 90% for 2, 3, 4, 5 years.
Right.
So at the end of the day, you just got to be willing. I just have that conversation with people. If they come to me, hey, I want to get on stage. I want to be a bodybuilder. First conversation I'm going to have with you are expectations and what you should expect and talk about the boringness and being okay with that. And if you're not on point, how you're just going to further that goal away, so if you want to do that, I'm okay with it, but you need to be okay with your goal being further away than you want it to be.
And as a coach, is it working with that kind of person? Do you feel like it's more challenging as far as like, the check-in process when they're telling you, hey, this is what I did, this is what I didn't do. And then for you coming up with like your response versus, if somebody checks in, it's like, hey, I did everything. It was a great week, blah, blah, blah. Then you're like, okay, you make some things, you do whatever you do, but it's kind of more standard versus somebody who's like, well, I did eat this, but then I ate this other thing over here. Is that more challenging for you?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So, our job as coaches is to control every variable. So as the more variables that we lose control of with deviations from the plan, whether those are communicated to us or not, which that's something else we can get into, but it makes they have to understand that does, and I have that conversation quite often, I let them know you're making my job a lot more difficult. Help me help you. So the more on point you are, the better you're helping me help you, because I have a better, view of what's actually going on here versus shooting in the dark a bit whenever you're changing things up on me. And either I know about it or I don't. I hope I do. Some are good about it and some aren't. And because it's say you goof up a couple times, scale doesn't move, and everything's fine. It's easy to not tell your coach about those deviations, but we need to know. So to answer your question, it absolutely makes a coach's job much more difficult if you're not on point with things. But I hate to say this because it'll, might give someone some bad ideas, but if you're doing the wrong things the same way every week, then that's kind of a controlled variable to a degree. So I don't really want to preach that, but some people are just like that. And, but at the end, that the chances that you have the same deviations this week to next week are pretty slim. So yeah, I mean, the more on point you are, the better your coach can do for you.
Yeah.
So that comes back to pushing your goal off further than it's going to be, because it's making everybody's life more difficult,
Right.
So
what do you feel like percentage wise are the people who say they're doing 100% versus what you think is actually doing 100%?
You're asking maybe how many people are maybe deviating without telling me, or versus the one that are actually telling you about said deviations,
or that are actually like sticking to 100%.
Oh, okay. So like people that are on point versus not. The percentage of clients that are not in zero deviations, and I actually believe that, I don't know, 20% maybe. So, think about it this way. Think how many variables there are in a 7-day period that are boxes to check. Yeah. It's like hundreds.
Yeah.
So what are the chances you're going to be, 200 for 200 on those boxes?
Yeah.
And if you give me like 195, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
But like at the end of the day, like, did you sleep 8 hours? I got 7.5. It's not a deviation per se, but is it optimal?
Right.
Maybe not. But how many meals? 6 meals, 7 days a week. That's 42 meals. The chances of people hitting that 42 for 42. It happens, but yeah, it's a lower percentage for sure.
Yeah. And then even within a meal, it's like the small things of, I'll find myself, I'll meal prep at the beginning of the week, and it's like, oh man, I don't have all the ounces of meat I need. Am I going to just cook up a whole new thing right here? Or am I going to just say, it's close?
Sure. Yeah. And that's, that's a good, a good client, hey, I was a few grams short of this or that, and I, made this choice, or, and that's where that communication piece is really important. But at the end of the day, it's like my response, let's be better prepared, right. So yeah, it's tough to nail. That's a lot of variables you got to nail, but at the end of the day, like anything, the longer you do this, the better you get at it, and the better you know what preparations to make. And something to add to that is like, the longer you do the same thing, the better you're going to be at it. So switching it up less, it's going to be optimal, because you're going to be able to, it's like if you did the same thing every day, like take any other thing, like a baseball swing. It's like if you're a baseball player, you're not going to change your stance every 12 weeks. Right. So like, why are you changing your training program or your diet? Or your food choices, what are the, it's like, let's just be good at sticking to the same thing and get really, really good at it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but, it's for the population I work with, it's a smaller percentage that it's like 100% on point all the time.
And let's say somebody's like, hey, it's a great week, all things done great, and they they send the pictures in, and you're like, you can tell it wasn't. Sure. Do you give them that immediate tell me the truth, or is it like, let me see what they say next week and see if this is going to be a trend?
Yeah, so it depends on the individual to a degree. You gotta be careful with your approach as a coach. You don't want to just jump to, hey, like, I know you're lying, right? You can't just accuse people necessarily. So you got to kind of be careful about how you go about those type of situations. It's usually you don't want to be patient with it for a little bit, but you might dig into it a little deeper. Hey, I'm making XYZ manipulation. It should be doing this. It's not, can we have a conversation about it? And, and just, it's okay to be honest with me. And if, I'm not accusing you necessarily, I just want to, my job is to help you. I want to get you to your goals, and we're not quite moving in the direction I want to be. So let's figure this thing out, and,
right.
I'm not, sometimes I'll let people know, I'm just, you don't need to be intimidated here. Like, I want you to let me know so my job is to help you. I just want to help you. So
yeah,
like, just, talk to me.
And do you work with people strictly online that are far away, or do you only work with people close?
All over.
All over?
Yeah, I got people all over the nation. So.
And do you find that there's any correlation between how close, like if you're working with somebody that's here 5 miles away, hey, they're going to stick to this better than somebody just in, like, not necessarily this one off, but like it just in general?
No, not necessarily, because at the end of the day, it's like the presence is pretty much the same. it's email communication and things that way. Now, I meet up with clients from time to time if they want to go through their training program or, something like that. But, it's pretty much all the same, whether they're a million miles away or my neighbor, really. I don't see much difference that way.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So whenever you decided to go the route of hiring a coach, what did that process look like for you, or how did you kind of figure out who you wanted to get?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. And really, it's like you want to look at a few major variables, in my opinion. Let's look at that coach's work. Like, what's their portfolio look like, right? Reach out to those people. Don't be afraid to talk to that coach's current clients, and dig into that. What's this person like? Is he or she, how do they go about their process, and are they communicative and how do they respond to XYZ? Talk to those clients. So I did some of that, looked at their work, spoke to that individual personally, so those are the big things, is kind of developing, look at their stuff, talk to their clients, see what they're like, look at the material they're putting out and content they're putting out, and then have a conversation with that person. Come up with a good list of questions that you find important for your journey and what is important to you, and just talk to that person and see how they respond. And, look at it as like you're hiring a new employee, and you're the boss, interview those people and see who you get a good feel for. Cause, answers to questions are cool, but then you also get a feel from people. Right. So, that's kind of how I went about it.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And was it somebody that was closer to you? Did you feel comfortable with that? Like that was more comfortable for you? Or if you were to hire somebody new, would you hire somebody closer first? If these two variables or if these two people were exactly kind of the same, would the location matter to you at all? Like, I feel like personally, it's like if I can go, if something goes awry, if I can maybe like see somebody in person, it makes me feel a little bit more comfortable.
No, that nowadays, I think my answer would be different for you now that have the knowledge level I have and things that way. But starting out, that did make a difference. And my coach, Tyler, he's in Lexington. I knew he'd be at contests that I do and things like that. I knew I could go visit him. He could take a look at me in person as a competitor. That mattered. Yeah. So yeah, definitely, versus the same feel from someone in California. I'm picking the guy that I can drive to all day long. Yeah, definitely. Right. Mm-hmm.
This episode is brought to you by Move Your Body Apparel, a Lexington-based, community-ran premium activewear brand that promotes the importance of daily movement. For the rest of the year, MYB is donating a percentage of every order to the Special Olympics of Kentucky. Save 20% off your first order with the link below, or use code TWR20. Online at mybapparel.com. This episode is sponsored by Fountain TRT. A large percentage of men don't even know they're suffering from low T. Fountain wants to help you figure out if low T is your issue and help you get your levels back to a healthy range with a topical cream. The topical treatment is easy to use, just apply it once daily to your shoulder area. Most men start seeing results immediately. Check out Fountain TRT and use the link below to support the weight room and claim your $1 evaluation. This podcast is sponsored by Smoking Gun Coffee, a veteran-owned coffee company that strives to give back to those in need. Don't forget to use code TWR10 for a 10% discount at checkout.
So when you did get that coach, when you did finally hire somebody, what do you feel like immediately was like you kind of mentioned like the stress a little bit off of you, but what as far as like the other side of it, the actual physical side changed for you the most?
Let's see. So really the big thing was just like learning to do the things I was doing already to a better level. So, like for example, like when we started together, it was like going to a growth phase, and like I'd done that myself, but I had also like had a mindset shift. So it's like, it's hard to relate how much I was to like the new coach, which that was motivational, right? You don't want to let the person down. So like that in and of itself is huge. Like you have that accountability now. It's like, you better be on point. You're literally just setting stack of money on fire, right? That's how I look at it.
Yeah.
And that's something I can't understand a lot of the time is like, why hire me if you're not going to do anything I say? It's like,
Yeah.
you know, so no, that was a big thing. Mindset, I was super motivated. I was like, I got something to prove to someone now versus just strictly myself. And then, you know, Tyler, he taught me to eat, you know, so, physically, like, I went into that growth phase. Like I said, done that myself before, but it was like pushing the limits now. It's like, let's really eat big and grow. And we did. It was great. And then just like having that stress relief taken off of me during the next phase of a contest prep, super great. And just, you know, paralysis, you know, by analysis, right? You hear that. And I was really good at doing that, you know, so overanalyzing and too many changes. It's like when you have a coach, you take your hands off the wheel and they're guiding you, you know, you better trust them and you better just be a robot and just do and execute. That's your job. You don't have to do any of the thinking anymore. You just do.
Right.
So those things you know, he taught me, you know, to eat big and different training approach. So, you know, learn a lot of things that way and then just to have that stress taken off from the dieting standpoint and the contest prep standpoint was huge.
When you say kind of eating big,
yeah,
does that mean for you like eating more simply total calories, eating more of these, you know, specific macros, eating more meals? Like, what does that mean for you?
Yeah, just food in general, just total intake for a long period of time. Just don't be afraid to put on a little bit of, you know, additional body weight and body fat and, you know, push the boundaries there a little bit, get uncomfortable. Yeah. So we're usually, you know, there's really about 2 times a year as a bodybuilder, you're kind of comfortable, and that's post show, maybe a couple weeks and, maybe the first couple weeks of a contest prep.
Yeah.
But outside of that, I mean, you're pushing the envelope. You're going one way or the other, and it's not super comfortable. So he did a good job of teaching me to get uncomfortable. So it's just pushing that limit. So
for you, when you were coaching yourself, it was more like, was it this thing of like, I don't want to get too far away from my vision, or was it, I don't like the way I look if I did go like that? Was it more for the competition side, or was it more for like the mental side?
Yeah, I think I just kind of leveled up from a mental standpoint. It was just like, okay, it's like I can go a little harder, you know? So I think it was just like unlocking that mental side that really is something I noticed from getting a coach.
Gotcha.
Yeah, just being able to, you know, just trusting him, like, you know, versus myself. If I pushed up to those body fat levels and things, maybe, all right, let's pull it back a little early, versus somebody, you know, just trust in the process that he had mapped out for me and going with it, you know? So, yeah.
Yeah. So over the last couple of years, you know, getting a coach and doing shows, how do you feel like your getting on stage has changed for you? Not just like what you're bringing, but also like, confidence, like how you get on stage, how you feel afterwards. Like, how do you feel like all that's kind of evolved?
Yeah, it's a good question. At the end of the day, confidence is going to come from, did I give this my best? You know, if you didn't, you're going to see your confidence dwindle. And I've been in both positions. You know, I've went through contest preps and I'm like, I nailed this. There's nothing else I could do. This is it. And talk about confidence. Like, that's what's going to give you undoubtedly the most confidence is, did I execute to the absolute highest ability possible this entire thing? Did I mess up any? No. You know, so that's where confidence comes from. So I wouldn't even say it's so much evolved over time. It's just, I've had different, experiences that way where, you know, I did my best this time, or I could have been better. Whether that better was in my control or not, I could have been better. So, you know, I think inherently, like, that's where confidence comes from, and how you feel on stage is, you're going to feel like a rock star on stage if you did everything that was given you to do and to the best of your ability. That's what's going to make you feel confident. And if you don't do that, the more you don't do that, the less that confidence is going to be as a competitor. So you better just know that when you want to deviate and mess it, just know that it's going to transfer to the stage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, having like what maybe you'd call perfect prep.
Sure.
Having that feeling going into a show, whether you really even get the result that you want or not, whether you win or whether whatever, does it ever feel almost overwhelming to think like, and maybe it is even more when you do win, but oh my gosh, like we did everything perfect and this is how I look, which is great, and this is what happened, and this is great, but now we got to go face another level of competition.
Yeah.
And even if I do exactly what I do, it's still going to be perfect. Like, of course you can optimize things, but like, does that ever kind of get overwhelming in your head? Like now I have to kind of even up the level or up the, raise the bar a little bit more.
Not too much. At the end of the day, what you need to realize as a competitor is the most important variable is time. So just keep being perfect. You're going to keep getting better. And then it's like, who shows up, right? So if I keep getting better, that's what's important. Just keep doing what you're doing and stick with it. Because time really is, for most people, the most important variable. I see what you're saying though, and I've witnessed other people get overwhelmed by that. I did everything right. I didn't do as well as I wanted to. What the heck, right? It's like, well, control what you can control, and that's it. Because there's a lot of things you can't. You can't control who's mom and dad, the person that beat you, or in their genetics. And, they've only been doing this for a year. I've been doing it for 6. They cheat on their diet the whole time. I don't care. They were dealt a better hand. So, control what you can control and let that manipulate how you feel about yourself versus how you place or anything like that. So yeah, that's, just keep doing the best you can and checking those boxes and do it for a long time. And I promise you, you'll get to where you want to be, or at least to a point where you're happy with your results.
And, being a coach who does lifestyle as well as bodybuilding, I mean, like, realistically, of course, anybody can do bodybuilding, right? Anybody can choose to do it.
Yeah.
But from a perspective of somebody who wants to do it and be competitive, what percentage do you feel like, maybe not even just who comes to you, but do you feel like, seeing on stage, when you're backstage, like what percentage of bodybuilders do you feel like are the true competitive percentage versus the people who do it because they like it? And maybe that percentage wants to be winning too, but like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So that's going to obviously vary from like the levels of show, like an amateur level versus like a national qualifier versus like a pro qualifier. Like amateur level, like a local level show, I would say the percentage of people that can make it, and there's levels of making it too. There's going professional. Well, can you win a pro show? Can you go to the Olympia? Can you do well at the Olympia? There's levels to that as well. But let's just use going professional. That's a pretty good landmark to hit for most people. The percentage of people that can do that at a local show, I don't say there's 200 competitors, so I don't know, 5 to 10%, 10 to 20 of those maybe can make it. And making it in this situation would be, getting that professional, pro card. So yeah, it's pretty small versus, pro qualifier, everybody's probably got a pretty good shot at going. There's a couple throwaways, people that shouldn't show up, but for the most part, everybody's got a pretty legitimate shot at potentially at some point getting that pro card if you're going to those pro qualifying events.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you feel like too that the percentage? Do you feel like the percentage maybe is also influenced by the time, by like the certain generations, have certain characteristics that are better for certain things, like maybe there's that bonus 10% that, hey, they could actually potentially have a pro card too if they were willing to continue in it, if they're willing to put in the time, but because maybe they don't have that same level of, it's like, hey, I want to try it. Oh, it didn't work the first time or the second time, now we're gone. But hey, if they would have worked for another 3 years, they could have got to that point. Like, do you think that there's more or less of that true potential just based on, time of...
I was kind of like, when I gave that answer, I was more so talking about just like their genetic makeup and kind of like based off their structure and what, so I see it all the time though, kind of to answer your question, is people with a world of potential that don't really tap into that because they don't quite understand what this really takes to get there. And the unfortunate part about what I just said is you'll see the people that don't give it their all and they still make it, so they do 2 shows and they're pro and they've been kind of halfway doing this for 2 years and kind of halfway dieting for 2, they still make it. So it's like, but you see a lot of the people with great structure, great, great genetics, really all the potential in the world, but they don't tap into that because they don't quite give it what it takes. They don't want to give up going out on the weekends or, they don't want to treat their off season like a prep and push their weight up and push the food and push the training and they don't quite want to do those things to make it. You see that a lot.
Yeah.
You see it a lot because, this stuff, it's a lot of fun for a lot of people, but you kind of got to devote your life to it. And a lot of people aren't really willing to do that. So,
and do you feel like bodybuilding is the most, the sport that requires the most of that, having experience in other sports? And obviously you were a different age, it was a different experience, but do you feel like bodybuilding is just kind of, it's almost the pinnacle of, it's more than a sport?
Oh, absolutely. It's, and for really, there's no turning it off. It all matters. Every piece of your day kind of matters to a degree. There's minutia, right? And you can't get too caught up in all that. And the ones that do will fry themselves out. But there's, basketball, you practice 2, 3, 4 hours a day. Cool. Kind of eat, halfway pay attention to what you're putting in your body. Some can get away with not paying attention to that at all. Some can get away with sleeping a couple hours a night, whatever. It's like bodybuilding. It's this all day. It's 24/7, 365 for the most part. Right. So I would say it's more than just a sport. It's, you hear it all. It's a lifestyle. It really is. You got to give it all you got all the time, really. Yeah. With the proper approach. So you got to pay attention to not getting burnt out and putting in those breaks where they need to go. But, at the end of the day, it does take most of your days. So, yeah.
And I feel like it's so tricky too, because like as much as bodybuilding, it's like it does all matter and it does so time consuming and all that stuff. It's still, you have to like be smart, be proportional. Like you can't just be like in basketball, maybe if your shot's off, like you could go into the gym and work until it's on, and it could maybe even happen that day.
Yeah.
But with bodybuilding, it's like, oh, if your right bicep is a little off, you don't fix that in a day. It's so hard because you have to continue and stick to it. And it's like 4 months later, it's finally where it needs to be. Whereas in other sports, you could maybe fix something that's messed up in a day or a week.
Or immediately, right? Yeah. It's just delaying gratification. It's just consistently delaying gratification. It's always thinking about, man, a million tiny victories are going to get me to that one, decent sized victory. So it's like, it really is so monotonous. And, it's just beating that same nail on the head, every day. And, you just got to be really good at being patient. Patience is, so important with bodybuilding. Are you good at being really, really, really patient and just sticking with it, man?
Yeah. Was there ever a time that you considered stopping, or this isn't for me as far as the competition side goes?
No, actually, it took me a number of years to go all in with it. It wasn't actually till 2018. So it was 4 years into my competitive journey that I actually realized, you gotta do this all the time to be good at it. And then it was like, the decision tree of that was, do I want to do this all the time? Do I want to be good at it? And I'm like, and I fought with that for a little bit too. And then it was eventually, you just succumb to, okay, I'm okay with not doing normal things, and I want to be a bodybuilder. and I, you know, I battled with that until probably like recently, honestly. And that's normal. It's like, you know, humans want to do, you know, quote unquote normal things. And at the end of the day, it's just those things don't always quite fit into a bodybuilding lifestyle. So, you know, it took me a long time to really actually go all in, like 4 years, like I said. And then, so I did consider, I even stepped away from it all in like 2017 I still ate pretty well and trained, but it was like training intuitively and nothing was structure and stuff like that, and stepped away from stage. Like I competed 2014 and then it didn't compete again until 17. So it was like a 3-year break of training and kind of, you know, dieting and stuff before I still loved it. Was a huge fan of the sport, followed everything about it, but it was just, and then in, you know, like I said, in 18, it was like, all right, we're going all in, you know? Gotcha. Yeah. So it took a while to make that decision. So I, you know, I see these 21-year-olds that do that, and like, I have some clients like that, they're 20, 21, and they're like where I am mentally at 28. And it's like, man, you know, you can be really good.
Yeah. Was it for you? Was it like the realization that time had passed, to where it's like, okay, it's time to make that decision, because if I wait another 3 years or if I wait another 4 years, I'm just delaying the potential that I do have?
I never really thought of it that way. I just decided that one day that it was like, okay, let's do it. That year I switched to like the classic physique division, and it felt more like I was, you know, a serious bodybuilder and things that way. So it kind of naturally happened organically, you know, just, okay, I'm doing this thing. I want to do this thing. I'm obsessed with it. I love it. You know, I tried to leave it. It's like any relationship. It was like, it's so hard and difficult. I was like, I tried to get away from it, but I was like, I love it. I love it. I came right back, and it's like, and that was the realization. It's like, man, this is like part of you. Like, do it, you know, get in there and go all in. So, yeah.
It's funny you mentioned that, like, call it like kind of like any relationship, you know, it's like,
it really is, man.
It's like you're giving it all you have, and it's like,
all the time.
It chooses how much it wants to reward you.
That's right. Yeah. And unfortunately it's kind of out of your control on how much it rewards you, you know, based off a lot of things. So no, it's so interesting. Like, yeah, it's good. That's a good analogy, really, you know.
So what does the future look like for you as far as your competitive coaching, you know, the next 5 to 10 years? What is it?
You know, right now, major focus is on my people, on my clients. You know, I'm doing my thing. I'm a robot at this point with it all. I eat my meals. I train extremely hard. I love bodybuilding. I don't have a competitive goal in sight just this moment. I got a lot of clients getting ready for contests and things. Super excited for that. I really it's the first time in my life I've really had a second passion, which is really cool. Kind of they're one of the same, right? But so it's great that I'm able to do that, and so that's the big focus right now, business and building up my people and my clients and doing that. So, you know, next 5 or 10 years, I want to get that to where I want it. Right. And it's, you know, and I don't exactly know what that looks like right now. And I'm sure that'll evolve over time as well. You know, my goals from a coaching standpoint, I'm sure I hit this one and I'll want more and more, because that's just kind of how I am. But yeah, so that's the big things right now, is just continue to build up my clientele and, you know, build up my people and get, you know, share their successes. And then, you know, for me, you know, I'd love to get back on stage next season at some point. I just don't know when that necessarily is. Maybe later in the year, maybe not at all. But I'm just focusing on, you know, client relationships and then also other relationships in life right now, and just kind of letting my bodybuilding not be on the back burner, but not be the only thing, you know, in my sight. So, which has been, I've struggled with a lot of the time, is letting that take over. and, you know, ignoring some other things. It's easy to do when you're, you know, it's like you said, it's like you compared it to an addiction, right? So we see what those lead to and the issues that can cause. Same thing with bodybuilding, you know, to a degree. You can push a lot of people away and things that way. So, you know, it's focusing right now it's focusing on business and focusing on my people. And then when the time is right, you know, because that's a conversation I have with a lot of my clients that come to me, hey, I want to be competitive. It's talking about those expectations and are X, Y, and Z where they need to be before we go down that path. Are you in an environment that's stable? Are your relationships stable? Are you financially stable? You know, are these things all where they need to be for this to go as well as it could for you? Because that's what I want. I want it to go as well as possible. So yeah, no, it's right now it's focusing on business, and we'll see as far as competing.
And having that coaching there, kind of like right in the front of your mind, do you think that's almost like very beneficial for your bodybuilding because it's giving you this thing to like, okay, I'm going to continue to, it's not like I'm not rushing the bodybuilding right now. I'm taking my time with it. I'm doing the thing because I have this other thing. Whereas if I didn't have it, I might be doing it just because I want to do it, not because it's the time to do it.
Yeah, man. Yeah. It's crazy you bring that up. It's a really good point. This is the first time I've felt that lack of pressure for my own bodybuilding in a long time. Last season, I mentioned I had a bad season. I put a ton of pressure on myself to do well. And what happened because of that is I kind of fell out of love with the process. So right now I'm just, you know, I have other goals with my coaching and things, and I'm loving bodybuilding again, and it feels really good. And because of that, my progress is incredible because I'm loving the process,
right?
Versus thinking about the end goal and putting the pressure on myself to get there. That if you don't make it, that's it. I'm enjoying the process, and so no, having something else to focus on has been great for my personal goals. Absolutely, yeah.
And do you think that it's harder as a coach versus as a bodybuilder to get that feeling of success? Like, you know, you have control, you can do this or you can do that if it's your journey, if it's your life. Whereas if you're the coach, you're telling someone what to do, you're giving them that advice. Which one do you think is more challenging for you to find almost like a peace in knowing that like this was done?
Yeah, it kind of depends on the client. You know, at the end of the day, it is a relationship, just like all relationships, and it's a two-way street. You know, a plan's only as good as it's executed. So, you know, so you're given that plan and you're trusting that it happens. And for some people, for some of my clients, that trust has been built. You know, and I know that if they do mess up, that communication is going to happen, and that's great. You know, spending that time with someone for a long period of time to build that trust. And so, you know, it's really, I guess they're pretty comparable, really. You know, both of them. You know, obviously you have full control over yourself, and if you goof up, it's on you. But if your people goof up, you feel a little bit of that responsibility yourself too. It's like, what could I have done better to keep them from doing that? Or was it out of my control completely? So, yeah, I guess, you know, obviously yourself, you have a little more control over those successes, but, you know, building that trust up with somebody, you can feel pretty similar with having a client that way as well. Yeah,
definitely. A lot of, a lot going on, it seems like, with the coaching and very exciting stuff.
Yeah.
It's always been like something that I've been interested in, as far as like, you know, we hear it all the time on the podcast of coaches that there's too many coaches out there that they don't know what they're doing, and it's harming the bodybuilding, things like that. So,
absolutely.
You know, it's always good to know that there's coaches that are out there that are truly invested in their clients. It's not just, hey, we're sending out the bill and, you know, we're seeing you next in 30 days kind of thing. It's good to know that there's good coaches out there.
No, I think that's the most important thing with a coach. Do they care? you know, I don't care what I don't know. I put something out on this the other day. You can know all the X's and O's, but if you don't care, you know, it doesn't really matter. You know, get somebody that cares about you.
Yeah.
And wants it for you as much as you want it for you, you know? Mm-hmm. And I tell people this, I tell them, you know, don't let me want it more than you want it either, you know, cause I want it bad for you. So I need you to match that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
yeah, that's a pretty cool little statement there. I like that. That's
yeah.
interesting.
Yeah. That's the way I kind of like to motivate people.
Yeah. You can only want it. It's funny because not even being a coach, but like within my own family,
yeah,
they'll like ask me advice or they'll say, you know, I wish I could do this. And I'm like, you know, I want you to do, like, I'm going to tell you how to do it, but then you have to do it. And I want you to do it.
Right?
Yeah. It's like as much advice as you can share, as much knowledge as you can pass on. It almost hurts me the more I do pass on and the less I see people utilize it.
That's right. Yeah. Because you're in that situation, your caring is more than theirs.
Right.
That sucks.
Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah. You need that person who you're helping out to match that level of care. Mm-hmm. Yeah, man, it's really important. You know, you can only do so much. Some people hire a coach and think it's a one-way street. They're going to get me where I need to be. It's like, well, you got to do the work. Yeah. You know, it's like, it's 50-50.
Yeah.
Yeah, for
sure.
Absolutely, man.
But yeah, man, it was really good to have you on the podcast. It was great to chat with you, and I appreciate you coming on.
Absolutely, man. I enjoyed it. It's been a lot of fun for me, so I definitely appreciate it.
Yeah, and if people want to reach out to you and for some coaching, where can they do that?
Instagram's great for me. You can contact me on there. If you don't have Instagram, my Built by Bedson is the website. I coach for Built by Bedson under Tyler Bedson, along with Coach Laura Bedson. So builtbybedson.com is the website. Contact information, all my package options are on there, pricing and such. And then, like I said, my Instagram, Austin_Brown_CP. You can message me on there and also see all my information and also a link to the website. So that's the best way to get in touch with me.
There you go. And they've both been on the podcast before. Great interviews, great people. It sounds like, you know, they know their stuff.
Yeah. And a lot of the information I have, you know, within my coaching and the way I care about athletes, you know, came from Tyler and came from Built by Bedson. So, you know, huge shout out to Tyler, and, you know, he's been an amazing mentor and he's a great coach, and, what we have going is it's a really cool thing. So great people.
Yep. Thanks again, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you, brother.